All right. Hello, class. Welcome back. Today we are going to be learning about our ear, a little bit about our tongue, but mainly focused on our ear today. So I'm going to go ahead and present my screen to you. You guys should be in our Google Classroom. If you are on our weekly slideshows, you will find this week's slideshow. And when you go to the Thursday lesson, it is our tongue and ear. When you click down here for assignment, you should be able to see it's going to be your notes. You're going to answer the do now question, take some notes. Make sure some of you guys aren't taking notes from my slides or are barely taking a few notes. It helps me see, one, that you're going through the slides. Also to make sure, like I told you guys before, when you are able to not only read it or hear it, but write stuff down, that's just another trigger for it to stay in your brain. And that's how you guys have better recollection if we ever have a quiz or a test. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and open the lesson for our tongue and our ear. It's not that many slides. We're going to talk about what it actually does and then some issues and disorders of the ear. So to start off, our tongue and ear, for your do now question, go ahead and answer this question. Which sense can you live without? Remember, there's 5 senses, right? You got your sight, your hearing, your taste, your smell, your touch. We talked about our sight just yesterday when we talked about our eyes. Today we're going to talk about our hearing, a little bit about our taste, which also affects your smell, and then obviously a sense of touch, which we'll focus on tomorrow when we talk about our skin. So which sense can you live without? If I personally was answering this question, I would probably say, as much as I love the way certain foods taste, I think I wouldn't be as picky. So I would say taste, so I can just eat a little bit healthier than how I do now. I told you guys that is my vice, is I don't eat as many vegetables as I should. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. Hopefully you guys answered that. All right, so like I said, we're gonna focus just, I think, one slide on the taste buds. When it comes to your taste buds, we have 10,000 taste buds in our mouth and on our tongue. They are replaced every 2 weeks. So you guys know it's becoming the season. You have hot chocolate, it's hot, it burns your tongue. I mean, it's going to feel burnt for maybe a few days, and eventually you get your feeling and taste back. It's not like you kill those taste buds and they never come back. It's like if I accidentally don't put in sunblock and I burn my skin, well, I have new skin cells constantly replacing itself. Now, if it constantly happens, can we eventually damage them? You probably could eventually damage your taste buds to where you won't have the same effect as you do now. They do dull out as you get older. So if you notice, maybe some of your grandparents or great-grandparents, they might eat a little bit more blandish type of food because they do dull out. We don't really have the same taste as we did when we were younger. On the bottom, it says it works with your olfactory. Olfactory means your nose. So usually, like if you guys are sick, you have a cold, it's hard to smell. Well, usually it affects your taste as well. Like things just don't taste the same. So those two go hand in hand. Usually if one's affected, the other one will be somewhat affected as well. This picture just shows you, it's not like those are the only areas the taste buds are, but that's the majority of your sour taste buds where they're at. Your bitter, your sweet, your salty. Okay, those are the main taste buds in our mouth and where they're primarily located. Okay, now we're gonna start talking about our ear. I told you guys the taste buds was real quick. Let's talk mainly about our ear. So we're going to talk about your outer ear, your middle ear, and your inner ear, right? And everything that comes in between. So your outer ear is obviously this guy right here. It's a part of the ear you can see. Nothing here is bone. This is all cartilage. Some of you guys might have a little bit more flimsy cartilage than others. Some might be hard, but none of this is bone. You will learn the bones of your ears are actually on the inside. Okay, so this main job is to collect sounds. It's like if I can't hear someone, I say, what did you say? You cup it, you funnel it. Well, that's the main job of this. If I get in an accident and my ear has to be removed, it doesn't mean I can't hear. If it's just this part that got affected, it doesn't mean I can't hear. I just might have to cup to be able to collect sounds a little bit easier. Right now, inside the outer ear, when we see a picture, it's going to go into your ear canal. Both your ears, actually, the canals, they meet right here where your olfactory is, all right? You have a whole bunch of meeting places right here in the center of our face, where it comes where your optic nerve from your eyeballs to your olfactory, right? And then it goes down to our trachea or esophagus. So you have a whole bunch of canals that meet in this one inner area. That's what's really scary if someone ever has a head trauma, because you don't know exactly what it all affects. When it comes to earwax is good. It actually fights off infections. Now, listen here. If you got earwax hanging out, no one likes to see that stuff. So, I mean, you want to clean that out, but make sure you don't get a Q-tip and like dig it in, because you could actually do damage to your ear if you're constantly shoving something in there. All right. So we do need earwax to fight off infections. Constantly particles, dirt, germs are blowing in your ears, and you have your cilia, little hairs in that earwax to help filter it out. Like I said, though, if you constantly are clearing it all out or jamming your ear canal, that can cause some issues. All right, let's talk about your middle ear. So the outer ear is just this guy, right? Your middle ear, as you can see, it's like once you go into the canal, it's like if you looked at me, it'd be like right here where my cheekbone is my middle ear. The main job is to take these sound waves and turn them into vibrations. And I say sound waves. Have you guys ever watched like Charlie Brown and all the adults in Charlie Brown, they talk like this? Wah, wah, wah. Well, that's a sound wave, right? If you guys are into music, it's the sound waves. It's when you mix them together. You can see high sound waves, low sound waves, high pitch, low pitch. I mean, those are my choir people, right? So it's all about sound waves. Those sound waves, they enter our ear because I funneled it in. Once it goes inside the middle ear, it starts turning them into vibrations, right? The vibrations. Those vibrations then pass our eardrum. If you see this picture right here, I don't know if you can see where my mouse is, but this little thin stretch of skin right here, that's your eardrum. It literally is a thin, very thin piece of skin stretch. I'll talk to you in a few slides if we ever damage our eardrum. But once it goes to the eardrum, it gets those vibrations and it delivers it to the inner ear. So when it passes, okay, so this is where we have the tiny bones in your ear. You actually have 3 tiny bones in your ear. One of them is the smallest bone in your body. So in a couple weeks, I'll ask you about our skeletal system and I'll say, where's the smallest bone? It is in your ear, right? And that's actually called your stapes. A lot of people call it the stirrup. So there's 3 tiny bones in your ear: your malleus, your inx, and your stapes. A lot of people call them the hammer, the anvil, and the stirrup, right? So if you say stirrup, that's fine, the smallest bone in the body. Well, when that sound wave comes through your outer ear, when it goes into your middle ear, when the eardrum vibrates, it actually moves these 3 tiny bones. Ossicles means bones. So when the eardrum vibrates, right, you have the sound wave, womp, 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 and it starts vibrating, it moves those 3 tiny bones. Now those 3 tiny bones then do its job and it says, okay, move the sound wave a little bit deeper inside my ear. And then it goes to my inner ear. Then you have something in your ear. It's actually, I'll show you in the next slide. It looks like a snail-shaped. It's called your cochlea. So it's a snail-shaped object inside our ear. So those vibrations come through. It goes inside our middle ear. The eardrum then gets them, turns them into vibrations. It moves those 3 little bones, and then it goes to the cochlea. Now, your cochlea is filled with liquid. It helps set things in motion. Think of it like a wave. So little bones are vibrating, right? Now, inside your cochlea, you have these tiny little hairs. These hairs are so important because these are what create nerve signals. I told you, everything in our body works off these nerve signals. Just like your eyeball, the retina took it to your optic nerve and it took it to your brain and told you what you're looking at. Same thing here. When that sound wave goes through, it womp, 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 then just turns into a vibration. And then when it hits this cochlea and these little hairs on my cochlea, they start to move. And as they move, they create nerve signals that sends it to the brain, and your brain understands it as sound. So when I'm hearing as woo, 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 right? Once it gets those nerve cells, my brain says, there's an ambulance, there's a fire truck. A lot of little kids, think of little babies, they're so used to just hearing sound waves, right? When they're in mama's belly, they hear mom talking and they hear all these sound waves. So now when baby's born and they hear mom's voice, the brain says, that is mom, right? This is person you've been with for the last 9 months. So those nerve signals, those hairs in your cochlea is what lets you tell your brain what you're actually hearing, right? Okay, so let me show you this picture real quick. So how it works. So here's the outer ear, right? And both ears do the same thing, okay? Once you collect that sound wave, it goes inside, passes the earwax, which is good for us, we learned. It then goes into, this is called your middle ear. Then here's your eardrum right here, right? That thin piece, stretched piece of skin. Once it passes that, it turns into a vibration now. It's like you have a little vibration in your ear. As you see these little arrows right here, it says number 4, those are the tiny bones in your ear. It then starts to move those bones. It goes further on into your inner ear. You see the snail-shaped area? That's the cochlea. and you got little bitty hair cells on there. And you see this big nerve? That's your auditory nerve. Auditory means hearing. It then takes that sound wave, takes those nerves, and sends it to your brain, and your brain tells you this is what you're hearing. All right? So that's pretty much the basic process of how we actually turn sound waves into we know what we are hearing. Okay? All right. So what else does the inner ear do? Well, I told you guys that liquid in those canals, right? That actually moves the hair, and it also keeps you upright. If you guys notice, if you ever spin really, really quick, or maybe you went swimming, you have like water in your ear, and you have, it's called swimmer's ear, and you're like, oh, no, like you feel off balance. Well, that's because the liquid, like if I'm spinning like crazy, the liquid in my ears are going crazy until it balances me out. Okay, it might only last a few seconds, and then it will then balance you out. So we need that liquid in our ears. That's why we don't fall every time we're walking. All right. All right, now I'm going to talk about some issues and some disorders of the ear. This first one's called vertigo. If you ever heard of someone who had vertigo, once you have it, you have it. It's nothing to be cured, but you might find ways to help prevent some of the issues it causes, right? So vertigo can happen with any of these causes on the side. My brother-in-law, actually, about 10 years ago, they came out to visit with me. We went out to Turner Falls, and he didn't have water shoes on. He slipped on a rock. Good thing nothing else crazy happened. When he slipped on a rock, obviously his head shook, the liquid in his ears shook, didn't think anything of it. Well, the next day he had to fly home. Well, the elevation on the airplane, you guys know whenever you guys go on a higher elevation, it's like your ears pop, you gotta yawn and like let them pop. Well, that plus him falling the day before wasn't a good combination. He got home the next day and he was feeling miserable. He was dizzy, he felt nausea, he had to throw up, he just did not feel good. Well, ends up a few weeks later, he goes to the doctor and they said, you have vertigo. I mean, it could have been a combination of that fall. It tripped up his head, and then he went to high altitude the next day. So he had it from like a head neck injury. Okay, and you could get it from different causes. So he feels the spinning, the tilting, the swaying. He might feel like he's being pulled in one direction, the nausea, and this just randomly comes up. He might be fine for months, and then one day it hits him hard, and then he's fine for months, and then maybe 2 days it hits him hard. So people who have vertigo just think you're like on a merry-go-round that won't stop, and everything around you is just going. It's not fun from what I can imagine. All right. The next one, here we go. Let's talk about the perforated eardrum. So you see this picture up here? That is your actual eardrum. It's a thin piece, stretched piece of skin. As you can see, there's a hole in it. Now this looks like a really, really big hole. Think this is microscopic. It could be a pinprick of a hole, right? So how does someone get a hole in their eardrum? Well, it could be caused by infection. Maybe you're constantly having ear infections, and that infection could have torn your eardrum. Maybe something poking in it. So I say we don't want to jam stuff in it. It could be air pressure changes. We know it's normal when you're driving high altitudes to pop, but unfortunately that could pop someone's eardrum. Very loud noises. Maybe, God forbid, I'm by somewhere and there's an explosion, and obviously I don't have anything to protect my ears, and that can cause a perforated eardrums, or any type of head injury. True story, one of my soccer girls a few years ago they were scrimmaging, and one of my other girls went to like stop her. Well, the way her hand came back, it's like her hand perfectly cupped the other girl's hand. Think if someone cups their hand and like slams into your ear. Well, that was enough pressure to tear my other soccer girl's eardrum. She actually was declared hard of hearing in that ear for many years until she was able to go have surgery, and she just recently had surgery for it. Like it says on the bottom, how do they treat it? Well, they try to give you medicine and let it heal. Usually your body can heal itself. And usually after 3 months, if it's still not working, then surgery is the way to get it fixed. So that's a perforated eardrum. So take care of your ears. You don't want to be blasting your beats, right? You want to make sure if you're working in a job where it's a lot of loud noises, put in your earplugs, put on not only your safety goggles, but put on your headphones, whatever you guys need to protect your ears. All right, hearing loss. So obviously there's so many spectrums of hearing loss. This could be because of damage to any part of my ear. Now, technically not so much this part I told you, but more going towards the middle or the inner ear. It could be serious infections. It could be a head injury. It could be maybe listening to loud music constantly. Or it could be, like I said, I'm working a job where there's loud machinery. It could be genetics, right? It could have been born with it. So there's a whole bunch of ways someone can have hearing loss. Now, if someone has hearing loss, we know they probably might have hearing aids on. Then there's something called a cochlear implant. Okay, cochlear implant, if you see someone has this hearing aid device and then they have this little circular magnetic like device on the back of their head, that's a cochlear implant. My nephew actually has a cochlear implant. He, around 2 or 3 years old, we realized he wasn't hearing like he normally should. Took him to the doctor, and he had damage in those actual hair cells that transfer the sound waves to his brain. So he had damage in him. So he was, in one of his ears was like 80% deaf. And then his other ear, I think it was like 50 or 60. Well, as time went on, it just slowly got worse. So he's been growing up with hearing aids. He actually, I want to say within the last 5 years, he got a cochlear implant. He has one. Can he get two? He can. Does he want to? He doesn't. So it's up to him. But he wears hearing aids in both, and he's a cochlear in his left one. So what happens with that cochlear does, so you guys remember the cochlear is this little snail-shaped area, right? My cochlear is fine. So when I hear the womp, 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 it goes inside, it moves those little bones, vibrates my eardrum, and then my cochlea, the little hair cells say, this is what you're hearing. Well, his aren't as effective. So this little device, that what they do is, the hearing aids worked for him, right? But slowly they weren't working as well as they should have. So this little device, what they have to do, they had to go for surgery. They shaved part of his head off. They went in, they cut open his skull, right? And they put this like magnetic device on the inside, and then this guy clips on the outside. It's literally like a magnet. So when it hooks on there, when he hears these sound waves, this is what helps turn those sounds into electrical signals, and then it stimulates his hearing nerve. So if what's happening to him, his little hairs aren't sending it to his auditory nerve, but this guy does it for him. So he's able to hear with his cochlear on. Once he takes it off, he can't hear. Now, the thing with him is, obviously, anytime we go somewhere like the airport, he can't go through those devices. So they have to just signal pat him down. But what's awesome about my nephew, he is graduating from college in New York this December. So my thought process in all this is, anytime we have something given to us that might be abnormal or different from what everyone else has, don't treat it as a disability. See it as, okay, this is just another challenge, and you can make the best out of it. And he is a really awesome guy, and I'm so proud of him. He's going into accounting. So like I said, don't let things limit you. But that's a cochlear implant, right? If you know people have cochlear implants, please, 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 first of all, be respectful. But please, 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 you don't want to do any like hard movements to their head. He loved playing soccer, loved sports, but he had to quit doing that because of this. If he gets that hit or damage, it can cause huge issues, right? And those things aren't cheap. Hearing aids, they shell out like every few years, like $5,000, $10,000. So it's not cheap stuff. So please, if you know anyone who has them, please, please, please be careful with their equipment. All right, last slide I want you guys to do. In your notes, name 2 things that most interested you about your ear. Maybe it was what your actual ear looks like. Maybe it was the different issues with your ear. Maybe you're like, I didn't know my eardrum was that small. I didn't know one little pinprick can cause that much damage. Maybe it was that one slide about our taste buds. So go ahead and name 2 things that most interested you about your ears. And with that being said, take care of your ears. Don't be jamming Q-tips, clean it out, but don't be jamming in it. If you guys are listening to music, don't be blaring it in your ears. If you perform any jobs where it's like heavy machinery, please wear your ear protection. If you are known to get ear infections a lot, like swimmer's ear, make sure if you guys ever go swimming in the summertime to put those earplugs in. And yeah, take care of your ears. If you guys have any questions, holler at me, and I will see you later. See ya.